Next, so vector addition using analytical method. Lately, we have measured using the graph or the head-to-tail method, although meron pang iba, just like parallelogram method. So this case, let's identify the component of a certain vector A in this example. So to get the x component, you have to use the SOHCAHTOA definition of an angle. Take note, cosine theta is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse, the adjacent leg over the hypotenuse. So when you want to get only the x component of the vector, then you just have to multiply a with the cosine theta. Okay, same is true with the sine theta, the y component divided by the vector a. So y component of the vector is equal to a, or the magnitude of the vector a multiplied to sine theta. So let's have an example. Let's say an airplane is to be launched. It's about to depart. Now it's moving at a velocity of 40 meters per second at an angle 15 degrees from the positive x-axis. So how are we going to get the x component of the vector 40 meters per second? So to do that, we just have to multiply 40, which is the magnitude or the velocity of the airplane, multiply to the cosine of 15 degrees. So the result is 38.64 meters per second. That's the x component. How about the y component? So the same thing, 40 multiplied to the sine of 15, that's 10.35 meter per second. How about if, in this example, Superman is moving at the fourth quadrant, no longer in the first quadrant? Of course, we have to use the unit circle to identify the angle from the x-axis. To do that, of course, you have to imagine you have encircled that. The entire thing is 360 degrees minus 30, that's 330 degrees. That's the angle that we're going to use when computing for the x component and y component of the vector. To do that, so 100 multiplied to the cosine of 330, which is the angle from the x-axis, the answer is 86.60 meters. And the y component is 40. Okay, so it's not 40, it should be 100. Okay, I would like to correct that. So 100 times sine of 330. Okay, the answer to that is negative 50, not negative 20. So this is incorrect. That should be negative 50. Okay, so let's have an exercise. So let's say in this part for vector A, it's 28 degrees from the x-axis. To get the x component, just multiply 15 with cosine 28. The result is 13.24 meters. Get the y component, that's 15, multiplied to the sine of 28, that's 7.04 meters. Next, for vector B, take note we are measuring from the positive x. Since the angle between the y-axis and the vector B is 30 and the total angle for quadrant 1 is 90, we have to use the difference of 90 and 30, which is 60. So 20 times cosine 60 is 10 meters. 20 times sine 60 is 17.32 meters. So there's no second, it's just meters. Next. Okay, so the angle is already measured from the x-axis. Therefore, we just have to multiply 18 with cosine 124, which is negative 10.07 meters. And lastly, okay, the given angle is 39 degrees. Take note, we're going to measure from the positive x-axis. So 90 plus 39, that is 129 degrees. So 25 times cosine 129 degrees is negative 15.73 meters. And dy, or the y component of this vector is 25 times sine of 129 degrees. That is 19.43 meters. Okay, that's it for the components. How about if we are asked about the total or the resultant when added? Okay, so let's use or calculate them through these examples. Okay, a hiker is walking through the woods. He starts from his campsite, which is its origin. He initially travels along the x-axis, and his initial displacement of 1,200 meters takes him to the tip of vector A. Hence, A has a length of 1,200 meters and it's parallel to the x direction. He then turns and moves along the path described by vector B. This vector has a length of 1,500 meters and makes an angle of theta B equals 30 degrees with the x-axis. When the hiker stops, how far is he from the campsite? So we will represent this vector through this. So vector A, vector B, and this is the resultant vector. And vector B is forming 30 degrees from the positive x-axis. Now, how to solve for the resultant of each component? So let's get the x component or horizontal. X represents horizontal, y represents vertical component. So for vector A, which is this arrow, 1,200, okay, is the answer because cosine of 0, let's check, cosine of 0 is 1. So 1 times 1,200 is 1,200 meters. And then the y component is 0 because the sine of 0 is 0 multiplied to 1,200 is 0. Next, for letter B, let's multiply 1,500 with the cosine of 30. Okay, the answer is 1,299.04. Then let's do the same this time with the y component, 1,500 multiplied to the sine of 30. The answer is 750. To get the r or resultant, we just have to add, okay, the entries for the x component. Okay, sum is 2,499.04 and the sum of the y components, that is 750. Okay, take note, we always have to use the correct angles so that we can arrive to the correct answer. So to get the resultant, we have to get the square root of the sum of the squares of the components. So that's 2,499.04 squared added to 750 squared. Get the square root of the sum of the squares. The answer is 2,609.16 meters. To get the angle formed from the origin or from the x-axis, okay, you just have to get the arctangent of the quotient of the y and x component. So divide 750 with the x component, 2,499.04. Get the arctangent and the answer is 16.71 degrees. So resultant is 2,609 meters, 16 or 17 degrees. That is north of east. Next example. 3 players on a reality TV show are brought to the center of a large flat field. Each is given a meter stick, a compass, a calculator, a shovel, and the following displacements. A, 72.4 meters, 32 degrees east of north. B, 57.3 meters, 36 degrees south of west. And letter C, 17.8 meters due south. The 3 displacements led to the point in a field where the keys to a new porch are buried. 2 players start measuring immediately, but the winner first calculates where to go. What does he or she calculate? The first thing that you have to do is understand the problem. Second thing is to graph or represent the vectors in the problem. And when you are done representing that, it will look like this. So let's discuss this part by part. The first given is 72.4 meters, represented by vector A, forming 32 degrees east of north. So this is east of north, 32 degrees. Next, 57.3 meters as letter B. So we have to hypothetically make a Cartesian plane on top and locate 36 degrees south of west. That's located in the third quadrant. So dito po yung third quadrant. So 57.3 meters. And letter C is 17.8 meter due south. So it's not inclined. It's vertically ganito lang siya along parallel with the y-axis. So how are we going to calculate or answer what is being asked in this problem? So you have to get the x components of each vector and the y components to get the resultant vector components. So let's recall, the first one is cosine 58. The given there is 32 degrees, but that was formed east of north. Take note, we are always measuring from the positive x. So 90 minus 32 is 58 degrees. Therefore, in vector A we are going to use 58 degrees in our calculations. So the x component of vector A is 72.4 multiplied to cosine of 58. The answer is 38.37 meters. Okay, for the y component, 72.4 multiplied to the sine of 58, the answer is 61.40 meters. And then for b sub x, 57.3 times cosine of 216. Okay, we get this value, which is negative 46.36 meters. Okay, likewise with the y component. And letter C, okay, it's only vertical component, therefore x component is 0 and y component is the sine of 270, which is negative 1 multiplied to 17.8, negative 17.8 meters. Let's sum up all the answers in x components from A to C. That's the answer, negative 7.99 meters. And sum up all the answers in the y components. That's 9.92 meters. To get the resultant value of the entire thing, so r equals 7.99 squared. Of course, the square of a negative number is an absolute value of the number. Plus the 9.92 squared. Square root of the answer is 12.74 meters. Get the angle by dividing the y component with the x component. 9.92 divided by negative 7.99. The answer is negative 51.15 degrees. Okay, take note, the negative 51.15 degrees is formed from the negative x-axis. Okay, we are trying to solve the angle from the positive x. So if we are going to view only the angle or use the angle from the positive y, then the answer is 39 because 90 minus 51 is 39 degrees. But if you want to measure from the positive degree or positive x-axis rather, so 39 plus 90 is equivalent to 129 degree. Therefore, the answer could be 12.74 meters, 39 degrees west of north, or 12.74 meters, 129 degrees, okay, north of east. Okay, so that will be the answer. Okay, and for the last problem, a GPS receiver told you that your home was 15 kilometers at a direction of 40 degree north of west, but the only path led directly north. If you took that path and walked 10 kilometers, how far and in what direction would you then have to walk to reach your home? The resultant is already given, and the answer is 15 kilometers. Unlike the previous problems, okay, resultant is being calculated. In this case, resultant is already given, and we are trying to find the vector b. So to do that, we just have to get the components. So here are the components of the vectors. We have calculated the a and the r, which is 140 degrees. So to get the components of the b vector, just have to subtract. So negative 11.49 okay, is 11.49 kilometers, and in this case that's 0.36 kilometers. So that's it for for today, and here are my references. God bless, and see you again next session.